Go ahead and get started here. Welcome. My name is Matt Townsley. I am the Director of Instruction and Technology in the Solon Community School District. For those of you that are not familiar with Solon, it's about halfway between Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. We're maybe a little bit bigger of a sort of small 3A school. I was just talking with Corey from Keokuk. You know, Corey and I, we see each other at these types of meetings every once in a while. We're like, hey, how's the fall beds report? How's the fall bed staff? How's team? All those type of small district, central office lingo. You know, some of you are shaking your head because you're in that same position. Or even some of you principals are like, I wish I had a central office person that could do some of those stinking reports for me. I also oversee special education, teacher leadership, gifted ed, a lot of those different things. But probably what I'm most passionate about is really all of the professional learning that we can and should provide to our teachers and with our teachers. And so today I was invited to share with you several different topics, and one of those topics during the next 50 minutes or so is really about initiative fatigue and how we might move forward in a manageable way. If you're a digital type person, all the resources, actually these slides are available on www.mctownsley.net/resources. Also, on the iTech site, you're invited. There is a link you can click on the session resources page. It's a Google Doc that could be shared notes from this entire session. I encourage you to take advantage of that as well. Take your notes in there and see what other folks are writing down as well. The www.mctownsley.net/resources, if you mistyped it, it will be at the lower right-hand corner in just a moment. I'm guessing that all of you came here after lunch because you've experienced something kind of like this. There's that professional learning day, and all the teachers show up. And I say this in jest. None of the teachers in our school are saying, I really hope the administration has any initiative for us all to start this month. I call this idea of shotgun professional development, you know what I'm talking about? It's where you like say, boom, what should we talk about today? Boom, what should we talk about today? Boom, what should we talk about today? And our staff literally shows up and they have no idea what we're talking about today. I've worked with some administrators from other school districts where the professional development day is on Tuesday and they're planning it Monday at 4 o'clock, and they send out the email at 5 o'clock saying, staff, by the way, don't forget to bring your for tomorrow. And it's no wonder our staff feel this idea of initiative fatigue. Some of us are administrators in the room. It's no wonder that sometimes we feel like we're burdening our staff, or we feel like the powers that be above us are working us through this thing called initiative fatigue. How many of you have ever heard Jamie Vollmer talk? Okay, just one person here. Jamie Vollmer is actually not an educator, but he is from Fairfield, Iowa. He used to be a huge critic of public education, just a huge critic. As he learned more about public education, now he is a huge advocate. And I don't usually recommend a lot of books, but I do recommend this one that he wrote. It's not new, maybe the past 10 years or so. It's called Schools Cannot Do It Alone. And if you don't have the time or the resources to watch or to read the entire book, I thought we could do is we could watch just a brief 2-minute video that Jamie Vollmer did that summarizes this book as a launch for our session today.
And write about public education, and I contend that this story is important. Our response will determine everyone's future, whether or not we have children in school. America's first public schools were established in the mid-1700s. They were designed to teach young people, originally white boys, basic reading, writing, and arithmetic. America's leaders saw public schools as a logical place to select and sort young people for life in the industrial age. It was at this time that we began to shift non-academic duties to the schools. From 1910 to 1940, we added vocational education, domestic science, phys ed was expanded. In the 1950s, fire and tornado drill, driver education. In the 1970s, in the 1980s, in the 1990s, and We bombard our schools with new responsibilities. We insist that they compensate for society's failures and neglect. All the while, we demand that they meet rising academic expectations. But this is a job for all of us. We must all come together and help our schools remove the obstacles to student success. Our schools cannot do it alone. They need our help. They need our understanding and support to produce the graduates and the citizens we need.
That resonated with you? Wow. You know, I can remember back in the day, I was told that schools weren't required to offer breakfast. And now schools have to provide breakfast. That's just one example of the number of things that our schools are required to provide. You know, in my conversations that I have, I'm sure you have a lot of conversations with folks that are not actually in education. And what I try to explain to my family members is that public education is a social service, just as Jamie explained, right? Think about the other social services our country provides. Social security, welfare, food stamps, lots of other great social services that help people who wouldn't otherwise have the means. And I tend to think of public education as we're trying to provide a service to our community. And if I was a recipient of food stamps, would I expect to eat at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse every single night? Maybe I could expect that, but is the means there to make that happen? To eat at a very high-end restaurant every single night, given my limited means. Yet that's what our communities expect of us in public education, isn't it? They expect us to provide a Cadillac education, yet we're funded like a used Ford Taurus. And I don't mean that to say in a negative way, I think that's just a reality. And so sometimes these initiatives that we're talking about are forced upon us, right? We have to do that specific thing. And there's other initiatives that we choose to as committees, as administrators, as school board members, as Department of Ed folks, because they're just a good idea, a good way to help kids as well. I hope that by the end of our 50 minutes together, you will be able to explore the impact that various initiatives like digital leadership, digital initiatives, leadership initiatives, curriculum initiatives, that they all have an impact on each other. I hope that you'll also see that there's possibly a framework that you could take home, you could perhaps modify in your school district to consider how might we as a school district begin to funnel down some of those initiatives to make it manageable. Okay? So what if you do right now, if you have a device, you can type on your device. If you have a piece of paper, you can write on a piece of paper. I'd like for you to think right now, what are the initiatives and programs that your school district has started during the past 5 years? Okay, during just the past 5 years. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to try to write down as many as possible in the last 5 years. Just so you know, we're going to ask that you share those with someone around you in just a moment. So again, 30 seconds. Go ahead and write down or think through as many of those as possible in the past 5 years. All right, next I'd like you to scoot up right next to someone or perhaps get out of your seat and share with that person your entire list of initiatives. My guess is you two may have some in common as well. Okay, go ahead. Okay, let's just do a quick little survey in the room. How many of you said you're currently working on AIW? Anyone AIW past 5 years? Okay. Professional Learning Communities, PLCs? Okay. Standards-based grading. Oh, a few hands keep coming up, yeah. A one-to-one, grow on a one-to-one the past couple years? Okay. Maybe you did launch a new LMS like Canvas or something like that. Okay. Common form assessments. That new thing the Department of Ed requires to do, that new like early literacy fast thingamajiggy, yeah? Oh my goodness gracious. RTI, launched RTI in the past 5 years, MTSS, I mean, the list goes on, right? PBIS, Oveus, I mean, holy cow.
PLC.
What's that?
Safe schools.
Safe schools, yeah, we did the safe schools thing. Holy cow. I mean, wow. There's just a lot of stuff going on. This next exercise could be interesting as well. I'd like you to think about now, what initiatives and programs has your school district discontinued during the past 5 years? Okay? I'm going to give you again about 3 seconds to think. And then I'll put the timer up here, about 30 seconds for another minute and a half for you to talk with those around you. What programs or initiatives has your school district discontinued in the past 5 years? Discontinued. All right. I heard Brent over here talking about how a district, either that he's a part of or was previously, stopped curriculum mapping. Whoa, I didn't know you could do that. Stop curriculum mapping. Whoa. Who else has an initiative they could share that their school district has stopped or discontinued in the past 5 years? Sure.
We've stopped IPI just because it was one too many things on the plate.
So you're
We
not
thought it
doing
was
the
great.
Jerry Valentine's instructional practices inventory anymore. No more. Okay. And you said it's just because it was too much, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Who else?
I mean, the PLCs in the sense that it's kind of morphed into AIW because we're a smaller district and it's really difficult
Okay.
to do a smaller.
So you kind of got rid of one acronym and tried to roll it into one that made more sense for y'all. Okay. Anyone here oversee the like the mentoring program in their school district or been a part of that? We've got to the point where we do like we call Solon Schools buzzword bingo, and we just put a whole list of the acronyms up there. We have a person like shout one out, and then people try to guess what it stands for, and they tell them what it actually does stand for in our school district, just to acquaint them with these acronyms, so that when they actually start working with their colleagues, they're not like, whoa, RTI, like what the heck? What's that stand for here? You know, what's that look like here? It's kind of a neat little fun way to help people understand that. I pulled a little bit earlier from Jamie Vollmer, who is a non-educator, a person that some of you may have heard, a keynote speaker by the name of Doug Reeves. He's written a number of articles and books. He has an idea we're going to explore today called the law of initiative fatigue. It states that when the number of initiatives increases, while time and resources and emotional energy are constant, then each initiative, no matter how well conceived or well intentioned, will receive fewer minutes, dollars, and ounces of emotional energy than its predecessors. Makes sense, doesn't it? As there's more and more things that we're asked to do, we have a finite amount of time. And some of you are saying, well, I could add more time to my teacher's day by paying them more, but eventually the money runs out, right? Or if you expect our teachers to do something after school, then coaching responsibilities get in the way. Or you expect something to happen during the summer, and then, well, it's tough sometimes to get teachers to come in the summer, and rightly so. And so this is something I think is really worth exploring. What I'd like you to do right now, though, I'd like for you to pair up with another pair now to form at least a group of 4. You've created 2 lists here, the new initiatives and the discontinued initiatives. I'd like for you to brainstorm which list was longer for all 4 of you. Also, how many hours of professional learning does your district or building allocate for teachers? I'd like for you to try to get down to the hour if you could. I think that'll be an interesting exercise for us. And third, in what ways are initiatives monitored in your district or building? And it might be helpful just to look at that list of all the things you've added on the past 5 years and just to jot a note next to each one and say, how have we monitored that specific initiative? Okay? So because we've got groups of 4 here, we've got a few more things to do. I'm going to put a 5-minute timer up for you all to discuss this. Okay? Go ahead, 5 minutes. All right, if you would wrap up your conversations here. Did anyone come up with a real solid hours number they're confident in? I just did some rough calculations. Let's see. How many professional development days do you have? 5 maybe? I mean, some of those are like teacher work days, I know, but like we tend to have 2 before the school year starts, plus a teacher work day. and then we usually have a couple throughout the year plus a teacher workday. So I asked him, we had like maybe 5 or 6 full days. And so you take, maybe just say 6 times 7 hours, it's 42 hours. In our district, we have an early dismissal every Thursday afternoon. I know not every school has that. The state also requires now that teachers have to have a minimum number of hours of collaboration time. 36 hours, I think, is that number, so you have to figure that in somewhere. I mean, we're looking at, okay, maybe, let's say you had an hour early dismissal every week throughout the school year, that's 36, plus another 40-some or so professional days. We're really looking at maybe 70 hours that schools have to do these things. Maybe 70 hours. You could be on the lower side of that, you could be on the higher side of that. Here's an interesting thing about hours. Again, from a different group, Linda Darling-Hammond wrote, teachers who had 80 or more hours of professional development in inquiry-based science during the previous year were significantly more likely to use that type. She cites 3 more studies where an actual professional development lasting 14 or more hours showed no effects on student learning, but if they had to have more than 14 hours just to actually sustain that. That's just for one thing. 14 or more hours just for one thing. When's the last time we gave over 14 hours just to one thing? Right? Before I moved into the district office, I remember having like the shotgun PD on differentiation. We brought an outside expert. They came in and ironically didn't differentiate their learning throughout professional development, and we all learned how to differentiate. We did 6+1 traits of writing, which was really great training. But wow, we did it and then we were done with it. Doug Reeves has done a lot of research on this idea of initiative fatigue. He's looked at a lot of different schools and how they've been able to monitor and try to help administration and teachers accountable for the learning. And what he's basically found is that after 6 strategic priorities, the number of initiatives is inversely related to the impact on student achievement and faculty engagement. All right? And again, I think about the number of professional development days that we have. Let's say your school has 6. Some of us are like, okay, 6 days? That means I can do 6 different things. Wow. And I really like the idea that some schools have when they say, well, let's do like a unconference type thing. We've done that type of thing. Well, let's let teachers kind of decide what they want to learn. I think that's a great idea. But how does that help your 6 strategic priorities? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. How does that help your 6 strategic priorities? A wise person said to me, do we really want to do that? Because what if this teacher over here wants to just learn a certain approach on teaching phonics? And this teacher over here says, I want to learn a totally different approach for teaching phonics on my own unconference, FedEx, Google Day, whatever you want to call it. How is that helping our school district? How is that helping our kids? And so I think, yes, there probably is a time in our schools where we want our staff to really pilot things and to have some learning time on their own. But how much of our precious 70 hours or so are we willing to give up when we know that we need to be focused on no more than 6 things according to what Doug Reeves has to say? So, given that school systems have more initiatives on their plate than ever before, Jimmy Vollmer helped us realize that. I didn't even ask you guys the question, but I'm almost confident that every single one of you had a longer list for the things added in the past 5 years than the things that you discontinued. Am I right? Is there anyone in here that had more to discontinue than added? Because I'd like to come to your school and learn a little more about that. It's very common for us to add lots of things rather than take them away. And also that the law of initiative fatigue suggests that time and resources and emotional energy, they're just finite. And that really we can only focus in on 6 things at a time. What are some next possible steps? What I'd like to propose to you is an initiative, what I would call an initiative management framework. Okay? We have used this in my school district to some degree, not literally the steps you're going to see. But I hope that you can take something away from this that really piggybacks on some of the things that Linda Darling-Hammond said, that really piggybacks on some of the things that Doug Reeves said, and I'll try to add the what did this kind of look like and so on approach. So here's kind of the big picture overview. Step 1 is to establish a professional development leadership team. Okay? Step 2 is to create what I call an initiative inventory. Step 3 is to conduct what I call an initiative audit. And step 4 is commit to monitoring no more than 6 initiatives at least annually. I'm going to dig deeper into each one of these here in the next few slides. So the first step is to really establish a professional development leadership team. Matt, where'd you get this idea? Oh, this is an old idea, by the way. This comes from the infamous Iowa Professional Development Model Technical Guide. How many of you have read or browsed the Iowa Professional Development Model Technical Guide? Yeah, that is a good one. Kinda. Okay? I encourage you to check it out. There are some really great ideas in there. Recommends that a school has a district and or building professional development leadership team. Here are the selected purposes according to the Iowa Department of Education: to help organize and support various professional development functions, to engage in participative decision-making, to help principals sustain a focus on instruction. Wow, that'd be a great idea. Our teachers are helping keep our principals accountable. I like that idea. And to distribute leadership in the building. But what does that look like? What does that look like in a school? Here's kind of a visual diagram that we've used to try to illustrate what that looks like. We obviously have our administrative team and so on. We also have a district leadership team. Currently in our school district, we call this the Iowa Core Leadership Team. For those of you that have been around, 5, 6 years or so, that was something that school districts did, is they formed an Iowa Core Leadership Team of teachers and administrators, and they took them to the AEA and learned a lot about the Iowa Core and brought that back to our school district. We have just continued that on for multiple years, and we've evolved that team to be more than just talking about the Iowa Core. And you'll see, according to the visual there, we have our principals involved, and we have multiple teachers from each building involved as well. Why? The teachers in the room know why. Here's what happens if there's no teachers in the room, administrators, is every idea sounds like a great idea. And then you roll it out to the staff, and they're like, whoa, what the? You hadn't thought about this, or this, or this, or this? I make this mistake all the time. I'm like, let's have a meeting in early November. And then my elementary teachers are like, parent-teacher conferences are in early mid-November. We prefer to have our meeting the first week of December after parent-teacher conferences are out of the way. And we also have times where our staff are saying, no, I just don't know if our teachers are ready for that now in August. Why don't we wait until October, and let's instead just try to stew the pot a little bit in August and let them know here's what's coming in October. Our teachers are really good at that. My guess is that your teachers are as well, at really knowing what is the right timing and the approach to take when we're rolling out new things. We also have building leadership teams that try to focus in on the building-specific professional learning focus, whereas the district leadership team is trying to look at the big picture at the district level. I'd like for you to discuss right now these prompts specifically, but Matt, we already have a leadership team at our school, right? We already have a leadership team. I'd like for you right now, in the next minute, to discuss how often do those leadership teams at your school, your district, your AEA, your Department of Ed, how often do those teams meet and for what purpose? Also, what influence do those teams have on the planning and monitoring of professional learning? And has this team ever conducted an initiative inventory and audit? Okay, go ahead and I'm just going to put up 1 minute and 30 seconds. Go ahead with those around you and discuss those questions.
I don't want to create.
All right, bring your attention up to the front again. I heard a few people say, you know what, we have a leadership team. I'm not sure we've ever done an initiative inventory or an initiative audit. I heard a few people over here specifically say, yeah, we have a leadership team, and they're starting to get involved in monitoring, looking at maybe the survey data that you sent out to your staff. When's the last time that you took a survey from your staff on the professional development that you just did, and you actually had a leadership team that got together and looked at that, and you sent out the raw results as well as here's our next steps to your entire staff? And then followed up at the very next professional development by saying, hey staff, the reason that we're doing exactly what we're doing today is because of the feedback that you provided last time. All right? In our classrooms, we call that checking for understanding, assessment for learning, formative assessment. Why can't we do those exact same things in our professional development? I would argue that our professional development should be 10 times better than our classroom instruction. Why? Because we have a long time to plan for that professional development. Our teachers have a lot of pressure on them every single day to turn around quality instruction from one day to the next, from third period to fourth period. And so our professional development ought to be very meaningful and very purposeful because we have the time to do that. What would it look like to curate an initiative inventory? That's the second step in this framework. Well, the first step in this initiative inventory would be a group of administrators list the initiative that you've done during the past 5 years, just like you did today. I also think that you need to have a group of teachers, perhaps a group of teachers that are on that professional development leadership team, or perhaps just a focus group that extends beyond that leadership team. And then compare the lists for the purpose of agreeing on a common initiative inventory. Why is it important to have both teachers and administrators do this? Try it out. I almost guarantee you what's going to happen. Your administrators are going to have a list about this big, and your teachers are going to have a list about this big. There's a difference in perceptions as to what's really going on and is expected. There's a big difference as to what's required, what's being piloted. There's a big difference between what I think I should be doing because it's a good idea versus what the administration is telling me I have to do. And so I think it's really important that we have both of those perspectives in the whole conversation and that we actually have a common list and we agree. Sometimes this exercise in itself is like the best moment our teachers have ever experienced in their professional career. Because they realize that I thought I had to do something and now I realize I don't have to do that anymore. Because it was on their long list, but it was never an expectation set up by administration. Okay? Then, after you actually have an inventory, the next step is to conduct an initiative audit. Okay? This is where it gets just a little bit messy. I really encourage, during this part of the phase, that you actually do list the number of hours of teacher professional learning time that your district has as your pot of professional learning time. And then what you want to do for each initiative is you want to say, all right, how many hours did we actually spend on that initiative with just the theory of that thing? How much time did we spend actually demonstrating that thing? How many hours did we spend actually practicing that thing? And how many hours did we give our staff to collaborate around that thing? Again, where do those categories come from? The Iowa Professional Development Model. It talks about this idea that we need to definitely present theory, but we also need to follow that up with how do you do that? What does that look like? We also need to provide an opportunity for our staff to practice it, and then also to talk with their peers about what it's really going to look like in the classroom. Then, this is where I think it gets really sticky. Then for each initiative, once you've identified the number of hours that you've spent on those in those categories, then you need to identify the monitoring or implementation data that you have collected for that initiative. This is a really powerful exercise because what some of you are going to find out is we have absolutely zero. Or you might find out is we have a list of 10 initiatives and we have done a great job monitoring these 2, but the other 8, we just have no idea. Or through this part of the exercise, you may find out, dang, we've spent a lot of time on the theory, but we haven't spent really at all a lot of time on demonstration, practice, and collaboration. And so this exercise in itself is a way of beginning to think through and potentially begin to weed out the initiatives in your school or your district. A couple more steps. Once you've done all that, again, we're just still assuming that you have all of these going, and everyone's still saying, yeah, let's do what we're kind of, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I'm probably going to weed some of these out. You haven't weeded them out yet, but you're thinking that. Then what you want to do is you want to create a hypothetical year-long goal for that specific initiative. Perhaps 100% of teachers will create a project-based unit this year. So you're kind of foreshadowing the next year, or if it's early on in the school year, you can try to do it for that specific school year. Then identify the monitoring criteria that you would need just to do that specific goal. Why is this important again? Because sometimes our teachers think That, oh, the expectation is I have to have a problem or a project-based thing for every single unit for every single one of my classes. Because the administration said I had to do that. When really it would have been much better for our staff if we would have said, here's the small piece we want you to do of that specific goal, and here's the time we're going to allocate to help you get there. And so that's what these steps are all about, and how are you going to find out if it's actually being successful? Okay? The last thing you do is you need to consider the number of hours that you actually need to implement that specific goal. So you may find out on a project-based unit that you need to go back and revisit the theory behind it. That's going to take 2 hours. You're going to have to do some demonstration. That's going to take another hour. You're going to do some practice. Well, that's going to take another 3 hours. And collaborate. Oh my goodness, we're going to need to spend over an entire day just on this specific thing. Maybe we don't have time to do as many initiatives as we thought this year. Okay. Finally, after you've done all of this, again, in the back of your mind, just through these exercises, you're thinking, there's no way we can do this one. There's no way we have time to do this one. This is where your teachers and administrators create a prioritized list based on these things here. Okay? So as they look through it, they're like, okay, if we were to follow through with that plan, I think this is the most important one, this is the next important one, and so forth. I think what you'll find out for this exercise, if it's anything like our school, is that it's hard to agree on the most important ones, but it's easy to say, oh, here's some that nobody wants to do. Okay? And then the very last step is, since the administrators are the ones that are the allocators of the time and the resources and the money, is they need to be the one that utilize these lists and narrow it down to no more than 6 initiatives as a general rule of thumb according to Doug Rees. And then I encourage them to create what I call a plan on a page, which just shows everyone in the entire building and the entire school district, here's what we're doing this year. Here's what our district goal page looked like one school year. You'll notice that we did not actually, let's see, this was not really a goal, it was just here's how we're going to achieve on the Iowa assessments. We really had 1, 2, 3, 4 things that we were trying to do that school year. We felt like 4 was manageable for us. For some of you, 3 might be a better number. For some of you, you feel like 6 is great. And so what we did is we showed this to our staff at the very beginning of the school year in August. We created big posters. We put them in every single building. I'm the one that usually kicks off all of our professional learning. Guess what I do at the very beginning of every professional learning? Staff, let me tell you about our 2015-16 goals. Let's review. Here's what they are. And let me tell you today, staff, exactly what we're doing to reach this goal. And by the way, this one we're not doing anything with today. Repeat it over and over and over again so that your staff knows exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. I also mentioned the need to monitor, to commit to monitoring things annually. So I believe this was what we did for monitoring at the end of the year for these 3 goals right here. So in one year we wanted our teachers to initially align their course content with Iowa Core Essential Concepts and Skills. We used this Iowa Curriculum Alignment Toolkit thing. And our evidence of completing this is that we could run a ICAT report that would show that it was actually completed. And we could look at teachers' meeting logs to show they actually did it as well. We knew that we could reach that goal with that specific evidence. 100% of our teachers will document their enacted curriculum for each grade level. At the end of the year, what we found out, we did not allocate enough time for this. And so teachers in some content areas actually did that. And even though all teachers submitted their curriculum reports, what we found out at the very end of the year is that, yeah, they submitted the reports, but we really didn't get the quality that we wanted to. And so guess what we did the next year? We revisited that. We allocated more time because we did not allocate enough time to do that specific year. Poor plan on our part. We were really working towards common formative assessments as well. And you can see that we ran into some issues there with that. We did create kind of an internal portal where staff could upload their assessments. What we found out in that case was that we did a great job on a part of the theory. And we did a great job demonstrating it. But we didn't give our staff time to practice it and receive feedback on it. And so we actually had to revisit that for the next 2 years. We actually had to revisit the theory again and revisit more of the practice. We'd put some of our staff up in front of their peers and share how they did it. And then we'd ask our teachers to collaborate for the next 30 minutes and see if they could somehow mimic that. So there's a way of trying to monitor what's going on with an initiative. So again, the initiative management framework is really first using a team of administrators and teachers to curate an initiative inventory. Just long lists of here's the things we've done. It could be the past 5 years, it could be the past 3 years, whatever makes the most sense for you and your school district. Then to conduct an initiative audit using those steps laid out there. And finally, commit to monitoring no more than 6 initiatives at least annually. You should be able to report out to your staff, to your school board, to your superior, your superintendent, or your district office person, what this looks like for every single one of your outcomes. Again, if the results aren't how you wanted them or how you envisioned them, that's okay. But at least you're being much more focused. I really think, administrators in the room, this could be a huge win for the staff in our buildings. Because they're going to feel like they're going to be supported, and they're actually doing something that's meaningful. Teachers and coaches and AA staff in the room, you can be a part of this conversation as well. Well, let me do this. Before I talk about what I think a teacher's role could be, let's have you all discuss here for just about another minute and a half. If you're a teacher in the room, what role could you play? Or an AA staff member, what role could you play in this whole conversation? Also, I'm interested to hear what are some of the biggest barriers you see to implementing this framework. It's not perfect. It is fairly theoretical, but I'd love to hear what barriers you see in implementing this. And perhaps also in what ways is your system prepared to get after that. So let's do another minute and a half here. We are running very close to the end of time here. So go ahead, 1 minute and a half. Get your attention to the front for just a little bit of closure here. If we had more time, we would talk more about this. I'd also encourage you to think about communication. I really think that our schools should all be subject to what I call the stranger test. And then I put an outsider, because stranger sounds kind of spooky, but an outsider, if an outside educator walked into your school and just started talking with the teachers and said, hey, what are your goals this year? What are your initiatives this year? And if they're very confident and say, we're doing this, 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 and this, that's probably an indicator that you're doing it right. If they're like, well, I don't know, we talked, and they're not really confident, then you probably have a communication gap. Again, I go back to the example that's been very effective for us, is just communicating over and over and over again the goals. You saw our student performance goal up there, and that's not something we actively spend time more than a couple times a year looking at our Iowa assessment data. But I'm confident if you walked into Solon High School, Solon Middle School, Lakeville Elementary today and said, what's the student achievement goal here? They'd say, oh, it's 90-25. We want 90% of our kids to be proficient and 25% of our kids to be highly proficient. They would tell you that. And they'd probably tell you if they've been around a while, they'd say, you know what? A couple years ago, it used to be 85-25, but we have achieved that goal. And that would be like awesome if they would say that about all of our goals. We're still working towards that. But if you're a district person or an instructional coach person, you should be sending this information out all the time. Just repeat yourself over and over and over again. If you're a teacher, you should be asking your administration to do that. And to also start this whole process, I believe, of an initiative management framework. I hope that during the past 50 minutes, you've thought about the impact that initiatives have on each other, whether it's digital or curriculum or leadership. I hope that you also have considered this initiative management framework. Maybe you can adapt it or modify it for your specific building or district's needs. Again, it's not perfect, but I think it can hopefully help you get started in the right direction. If you do decide to use it, I would love to get your feedback on that. If you found that there's a step that I missed that you add in there, just send it to me and perhaps we can collaborate and save the world through that experience. I appreciate your time today. If you have any questions, I'll stick around with you afterwards. Appreciate it.